Today we're going to talk about projects spiraling out of control. Start the story with the resonators here in front of me. I made an entire exhaust for this car, ending with these two handmade resonators. These pass through the rear bumper on the car. So in order to put these on finally, I decided to take the bumper off of the car and restore it. I then decided I had to, in order to put the bumper back on, had to clean up the taillights and restore those. After I did that, I had the bumper off and the taillights out, and man, oh man, are these dirty. I thought I'd have to clean up this paint before I put the taillights and the bumper back in, and then the exhaust through the bumper. So it really has grown here, and that leads me to the real conversation tonight, which is about old, faded, dirty paint. This car has, in my opinion, beautiful paint, original paint, but obviously it shows signs of wear. So what I'd like to do is keep all this paint. I don't want to burn through and I don't want to sand through, but I'd like to make it look as nice as possible and shine it up. So I've got the rear valence panels here. They bolt on here. These came off because they have a rubber strip that seals to the rear bumper. They also have a rubber strip that isolates the valence from the rear body panel. Both of these rubber strips had seen better days. So to replace them, I had to remove the staples. They're attached with 5 metal staples, and that's how I'm going to reattach them. But to do that, I decided to take them off the vehicle and do it on the bench. So with the rubber staples removed, I got to the part of restoring the faded paint. To talk more about faded paint, I'm going to bring you over to the fenders and I'll show you what I've done on those. So here we are at the fenders. The driver fender I have not touched. This is the way it came off of the vehicle. Again, the paint's all here, but you really can't tell by looking at it. It looks terrible. You know, it looks rusted. It looks like it's not there. And what is there sure does look terrible. You know, stained, grease, mildew, whatever you want to call these different types of splotchy stains, all over the place. Doesn't look good at all. So now I'll show you the passenger fender and I'll talk about what I did. Here it is. This is the passenger fender. It looked just like the driver. And what I like to do is I use, believe it or not, this steel wool. It's not ordinary steel wool. Don't get the steel wool from your sink. This is 4/0, very, very fine steel wool. What I do is I use a soapy solution and the steel wool, and I take off all that grime and that grease. Using several steel wool, you know, you want to be very careful. You're not taking dirt and just grinding it in to your paint. So you want to make sure it's clean, and you're using plenty of water, plenty of soap, and just you know, go over this until you get the grit off and the grime off, and what you're left with is clean paint, but it does have a small scratch to it from the steel wool. Very, very fine again. So next we'll talk about what to do from there. Alright, I got the valence panels here in front of me again, and we're going to continue our discussion about cleaning up the paint. Now that the paint is clean of debris, you certainly don't want debris on the material if you're going to buff, because the first thing you're going to do is put the dirt in the pad and just ruin everything. So it's got to be clean, very important. So this one here on my left has been cleaned with the steel wool. You could see that it's got a little bit less shine than this one here that's had the buffer whipped over it quickly. So the reason I show this is because of the discussion about scratch. We're polishing this paint. We're being very careful not to buff through the paint. But still, when you're polishing, you're always dealing with a finer and finer scratch. So our steel wool left a very fine scratch. What we're going to do about that is we're going to use rubbing compound. This compound says that it removes 1,200 and finer sand scratches. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to do that to remove the scratches that were put in by the steel wool. Again, this is going to leave, I wouldn't call it a scratch, but it's going to leave a swirl mark. So we're not going to stop here. After this, we'll use a machine polish. Machine polish is designed to remove compound swirl marks. But then we won't be done after that because again we're going finer and finer scratches. So after this we're going to use the ultra fine machine polish, which says it produces a swirl-free finish. Removes fine machine polish swirls. So just to review, the name of the game is to reduce scratch. We're going to go from the steel wool to the compound, to the polish, to the even finer polish. And then after all that's done, we'll put a coat of wax on this and it's ready to go on the vehicle and I can continue with my exhaust project. Okay, for the compound, I'm going to use a small pneumatic buffer. I'm going to use a foam pad rather than a wool pad. I'm trying to be a little gentle with this old paint, and I don't want to take off too much material, and I also don't want to create a large amount of heat. This paint is checked, and if you start creating heat, man, you don't know what's going to happen. I'm not saying the paint's going to come off, but it certainly is more likely to. So we're going to approach it very gently here. There we go. There is the result of the first compound. You can see the shine is greatly improved. After this, like I said, we'll move on to the polish. Each step will look better than this. All the buffing is done though with the compound. You're not going to remove any more scratches after you move on from compound, that's for sure. So if you're not happy, you got to keep going with compound. Me personally, I could keep going and keep buffing for a perfect finish, but that's not what we're doing here because we'd run out of paint, we'd burn through, and that's not what I want for this paint job or for this car. So what we wanted to do was make this existing paint look as good as possible. This is not the only way to do it, but this is how we're going to do it. Okay, I've switched to a slightly softer foam pad than the one before. Now we're on to our next step. Okay, this is the ultra fine machine polish. Last buffing step before we're going to wax these. Okay, there are two buffed valence panels. As you can see, good shine. And we have not buffed through. It's not thin anywhere. Also very important, as you can see, there's a bevel here. I don't know if you saw it, but it's very crucial not to let your buffer sit on that high point of that bevel. Always let it sit on the flat and then the flat surface of the bevel so you don't burn through. I think last thing we'll do is we'll bring it back over to the back of the car so you can get a good look at the difference between the untouched rear body panel and the buffed rear valence panel. So we'll show you that now. Okay, thanks for watching the video. I just wanted to show as the last part the difference between, you know, what was there and what we've got now. Good shine. Again, the paint's not perfect. It still has checks in it. But I sure do like it. It's only original once. And we're trying to keep it that way. So before I put the bumper on, I will do these adjacent panels as well. I'll certainly clean out the taillight pockets. I'll clean out this rear panel. Everything around the bumper so that when the bumper's on, this whole area is cleaned up. And we'll move on with the rest of the car's paint at a later time. There will be more. Thank you.